So today we are looking at HR dimensions. If you can all hear me, this is module 2 of the 5 series of modules, which we started yesterday. Yesterday we covered HR audit basics, which was basically an introduction to HR audit. Today we are on module 2, where we are going to look at HR audit dimensions, and some of the dimensions include HR strategies, HR competencies, and organizational culture, which I had already mentioned earlier. So I want us to go straight to HR strategies, which is our module today. And these are the long-term plans, as I had indicated, which help an organization to achieve its objectives. HR strategies are basically game plans for achieving a competitive advantage. As the HR managers, we have a responsibility of ensuring that our department achieves its objectives, which are aligned to the overall strategic plan. And my working definition for HR strategies is that these are long-term plans that are aligned with the corporate strategies to achieve long-term objectives. The effectiveness of an organization can only be achieved through these strategies. Some of the metrics for measuring these HR strategies are talent management, employee development, change management, organizational culture, and also organizational diversity. To start off with the HR metrics for measuring these strategies, we start with talent acquisition. Talent acquisition is a process of attracting, maintaining, and retaining top talent in an organization. By talent, we mean people who have the right skills, the right knowledge, and abilities to work in an organization. So, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, Mwalimu, can you please share the slides?
Let me go back again.
We can't see the slides.
Can you see it now? Hello?
No, Mwalimu.
Let me close and then restart. Hello, everybody. Are you now able to see?
It's not. Yes. Thank you.
You can see the slides, yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So we were starting with HR strategies, where we are saying that it's a long-term plans. Hello?
Slideshow.
Slideshow, eh? Are you seeing it now?
Yeah.
Hello, are you seeing it? Evelyn, are you seeing the slides?
Yes, we can see the slides. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we can continue. I was saying that there are various ways of measuring the effectiveness of HR strategies, and these are the metrics that we are using. One of the metrics we are looking at is talent acquisition, which is a process of attracting, hiring, maintaining, and retaining the people with the right mix of skills, knowledge, and abilities. One of the ways of measuring talent acquisition is the time to hire. And depending on the organization and the industry to which you belong, the time may vary. Some may take shorter time and others take a longer time. For example, in public sector, because of the procurement process and the legal requirements, the period of hiring these talented employees may range from 45 days to 6 months, and in some cases, over 1 year because of the long processes that are involved. In private sector, the timing or the time of hiring people should be shorter, especially in technological companies. Because of the technology tools, private companies are able to hire people within a very short time. And the practice or the best practice in most organizations is 45 days from the time of advertising to the time of placing a person on the job. So when you are doing your HR audit, you look at the number of days that has been taken to fill a vacant position or the number of positions that have been filled. So if it takes a very long time, then your hiring process may be having problems. So that is an area that you need to look at if the time is taking too long. Secondly, in terms of talent acquisition, is the quality of hire. By quality, we mean employees who are qualified in relation to the following. 1, skills. 2, knowledge. 3, experience. 4, abilities. And 5, attitudes. At the end of the talent acquisition process, we must have employees who have all the above qualities. And how do you tell that there is a quality hire of talents? You can do this in 2 ways. For new hires, you conduct what they call probation. During probation, you are likely to tell the kind of people that you had hired through this process. This will be based on what they do, how they do it, and where. So you will be measuring performance during probation. In majority of organizations, probation is 6 months. Others could be shorter, like 3 months. So within the 3 or 6 months that a new employee is on probation, you can assess their performance, and this performance will give an indication of whether they have the right mix of skills, knowledge to deliver the results. Secondly, you can determine the quality of hire through the performance appraisals, which also vary. Some organizations conduct quarterly appraisals, others half yearly, and others annually. So through performance appraisals, we are able to identify the quality of employees that we have hired. The last element there on talent acquisition is diversity hiring metrics. From yesterday, we mentioned that one of the aspects that we look at in HR audit, and which is an emerging issue, is managing diversity in our organizations. So diversity here has to do with the differences among people from different backgrounds. And these differences are like gender, education, age, level of kind of training, and also religious groups and ethnic backgrounds. When you are hiring talent, you may want to look at the number of people who are represented from different underrepresented groups. Some of the underrepresented groups in Kenya could be the people living with disabilities, or some call it people who are abled differently. So you look at the number of people who are living with disabilities vis-a-vis the number that you projected in your HR plan. So in diversity hiring, you look at the people who are represented from different backgrounds, particularly the minority or underrepresented groups. Secondly, another metric is employee development. Employee development is one of the strategies of equipping people with the right skills and knowledge to improve their performance and also to prepare them for succession or taking over from those who leave the organization. So when you are evaluating or auditing employee development, there are several things that we may look at. One is training participation rate. In a democratic environment or organization, participation is one of the elements of allowing people to exercise their democracy. So participation can be in the form of giving their views or opinions when we are developing training needs analysis. So employees need to participate when they are identifying their training needs. Two is the return on investment from training. It is expected that at the end of a training process, there should be certain results that are achieved based on the training need. So when we train employees, we expect certain results, which include the following. One, reduced cost. Two, increased revenues. Three, reduced wastage. And four, improved productivity. So these are the returns that we get from investing in training. So you look at the performance of these employees over a period of time to establish whether they have achieved the results for which training was intended. Number three, on employee development, what are we measuring? We are measuring the skills before and after training. Before a training, probably people are lacking certain skills like communication, leadership skills, or communication skills. Without these skills, employees are not likely to perform well. So you develop, you audit the skills of the employees after training and even before the training. So this will help us to identify where there are gaps in terms of skills and what can be done to improve these skills. The third element which we are going to measure is performance management. Performance management is one of the functions of a HR manager. Some of the areas that we need to address or assess include appraisal completion rate. What do we mean by this? When we appraise people, it's expected that we conduct it from beginning to end. However, in some organizations, they start this process and it doesn't go all the way to the end. That means that it is incomplete and therefore there are no results to give. This lack of completion may be attributed to a number of things or aspects, one of which is management decisions. They may stop the performance appraisal process, or it could be a change in the environment, which means that people have to stop the appraisal and address other things. But most importantly, when you are conducting appraisal audits, you need to look at the time it takes from the beginning to the end. It might take days, it might take months, or in the public sector, the performance management process takes a whole year, which starts in July to the next year, June. It goes with the financial year. If it takes longer than expected, then there is a problem with the performance management system, which should be addressed. The second aspect that we are measuring is the quality of work that is produced by the employees after the appraisal. We measure performance in terms of quality related to several things. One, the error rates. What are the mistakes that people are making, which may affect the quality of products? We also get customer feedbacks, which are in the form of complaints or even commendations. The other one is the area of compliance with the quality standards that we have set for ourselves. So when we are measuring quality in HR audit, we are looking at some of these areas, the errors that are made, customer feedback, whether positive or negative, and the element of compliance. And lastly, on performance measurement is improvement. What are the areas that have been improved over the period of time within which performance appraisals are conducted? It is expected that employees should improve their performance from the previous performance measurements. In some cases, supervisors may refuse to sign the current performance measurement because somebody has not attached the previous ratings for the previous year. Why do they require this? It is because they want to see whether there is an improvement or not. So in an audit of performance management, it is important to look back the year that has gone by and the current year to identify whether there is an improvement. So you audit the performance management process in terms of improvement. If there are no improvements, then we can make recommendations on why and how this can be done. The fourth element is compensation and benefits. Compensation has to do with the payments that we give employees for working. And the benefits are the extra payments that we give them, either for doing well or for accomplishing certain achievements. To measure this area, we look at the compensation competitive index. This means that we have to conduct a salary survey within our industries to find out what is obtaining in the market. An organization can do this through benchmarking. And you don't benchmark with any other organization, but organizations within our industries or our sector. It is expected that after conducting this compensation competitive index, that you find out where you lie as an organization, that you are either above the market rate in terms of compensation, or you are an average payer in the market, or 3, you are paying below the market rate. It is possible to pay compensation below the market rate, but your benefits are higher. This makes you as an organization competitive. Or you can pay above the market rate, but reduce the benefits for purposes of reducing cost. It will also be said to be competitive. However, if in the audit you find that the compensation and the benefits are below the market rate, then you are not competitive as an organization. What are the reasons or the outcomes of not being competitive? One, you are likely to lose employees because they may resign to go to the competitors. And 2, in terms of performance, you may not compete effectively with the other people in the market because your employees will be demoralized and therefore may not be performing well. Secondly, we look at the level of employee satisfaction with their benefits. When you conduct a HR audit, you are going to develop a tool that will help to determine whether or not the employees are happy with their compensation and benefits. The results that we get from this evaluation or survey will help us to make a decision to adjust our compensation system to enable our employees to perform better. The other aspect you look at under compensation is turnover rate. This is the number of people who are leaving the organization over a period of time. So turnover can be voluntary or involuntary. When you audit compensation in terms of turnover, you may want to find out why employees are leaving through the exit interviews. So the exit interviews, especially for those who are resigning, will give us insights on the areas that may need improvement or give us the reasons why they are leaving. So as HR managers, we are expected to undertake exit interviews to find out the reasons why these employees are leaving. Why do we conduct these interviews? One, to know the reasons for leaving, and two, possibly to persuade those who are leaving to remain in the organization. The last aspect in terms of compensation that we are measuring is the total compensation cost. As a HR manager, I am expected to assist the organization to contain the cost of operation or the cost of doing business. One of the cost aspects is the compensation and the benefits. We must justify the compensations that we are giving our employees against their productivity and their contribution to the overall financial position of the organization. So we have to justify our existence as HR managers by looking at how much we are paying our employees vis-a-vis their productivity. That whatever we are spending on employees in compensation should be able to produce the results that we expect in accordance with the objectives of the organization. The other aspect we look at in HR strategy is diversity and inclusion. And we have said that diversity has to do with the different backgrounds of people. Diversity metrics look at the percentages or numbers of people represented from those different categories of people, such as demographics, or two, inclusion surveys, that some people may feel that they are not part of the organization because they are not involved in decision making. This may discourage them and also reduce their levels of commitment and engagement with the organization. Lastly, on diversity, we look at the promotion rates for different employees. People complain because some employees grow faster within the organizational structures and others stagnate. So when we are auditing the diversity and inclusion aspect, we will look at the rate at which employees are growing or are being promoted. It is possible that depending on your organizational structure, some people may stagnate at some point. This stagnation may be a pointer to a gap in your organizational structure. Some of these stagnations may not be attributed to HR, but it's because of the nature of the organization, where employees reach peak points in various grades, and they cannot move from there until retirement. However, there is a way that this can be done. Instead of promoting employees vertically, you can promote them horizontally. So horizontal promotions mean that you add more duties, more responsibilities, and more challenging tasks. In that way, people may feel motivated and they may develop a sense of belonging to the organization. Another strategic aspect is employee engagement. And as I've indicated there, we need to conduct engagement surveys where we are going to establish the level to which employees identify with and belong to the organization. So if the level of engagement is low, then our strategies are not achieving their objectives. And again, there are many ways in which we can engage employees. One is designing jobs in a way that they occupy the employees the whole day. So if the engagement levels are low, some of the reasons could be poor job design, and therefore we redesign the jobs in our reports so that employees can be engaged the whole day. Secondly, on employee engagement is the retention rates. This suggests that employees who are disengaged are likely to leave the organization. So for us to retain these employees, we need to ensure that we are put in place strategies to ensure that they remain with the organization. Some of the strategies that can help employees remain include: one, conducive working conditions; two, internally equitable and externally competitive pay; three, recognition for work well done; four, promotion and growth opportunities. So if these are lacking, then there is no way employees can be engaged. And lastly, on employee engagement, there is the element of participation in engagement in initiatives. Like I have indicated before, that one of the ways of engaging employees is to allow them to participate in organizational decision making. So when we allow these employees to participate, they feel important, they feel recognized, and they feel that their contribution matters. And therefore they feel valued. So we can measure engagement initiatives such as meetings, such as organizational activities, which require employees to bring their input. The other strategic aspect is succession planning, where we are preparing lower level employees for senior positions. When you talk about success readiness rate, we are looking at the number of employees who are ready now to take over positions of responsibility in the future. There are several ways in which we can prepare employees for them to be ready. One, we can do training. Two, we can delegate. Three, we can put them in a team to learn from those more experienced ones. And four, we can do mentorship and coaching. So when we are auditing succession, we will look at the initiatives that have been put in place to ensure that employees are ready to take over positions of responsibility. Another aspect we look in succession planning is internal rate of promotion. How fast are people being promoted in the organization? We are not saying that employees should be promoted very quickly, because there is a limit to which they can reach and then they plateau. So the promotion rate here looks at the people that we are prepared adequately for leadership positions. And in succession, the first thing that we do is to look at the organizational strategies. And then from these strategies, we look at the structure. From this structure, we identify those key roles to which we can promote people. And then from there, we look at the employees who have potential for being promoted. These are the ones that we prepare for those leadership positions. And as I've indicated, there are several ways of preparing them. And one key thing that we need to look at is the employee separation and exit, where people will be occupying those positions. So as a best practice, we must put in place measures that create a pipeline of employees that will succeed those who leave the organization, either through natural attrition or through other means like disciplinary or dismissal. Another aspect of succession planning is development plan completion rate. How many employees are completing their development plans? I want to believe that in our organizations, there are individual development plans where people put in, document the kind of training and development areas that they may wish to acquire skills and knowledge in. It's not all employees who might complete. Some might complete and some might fall on the way. As HR auditors, we want to find out why are some employees dropping out of this process. If the rate of completion is very low, then it means that there is a problem in our training and development process, because that is part of succession planning. The other aspect we look at is workforce planning. In other quarters, they call this human resource planning. In human resource planning, we want to prepare strategies or initiatives that will help to achieve the corporate objectives. So the starting point in human resource planning is to review the corporate strategies, and then from there, determine our establishment and the demand for labor. From there, we can identify a gap and then prepare human resource plans or strategies. So to measure the success of our workforce planning, we look at the three key aspects. One, workforce utilization rate. It is possible that in our organizations, there are people either who are overutilized or others who are underutilized. Overutilized employees are those who have a lot of work to do within a specific day or period of time. Underutilized are those who don't have enough work, and therefore they may be idle either during the day or during the week. With proper human resource planning, we are able to design jobs that ensure that our employees are utilized effectively. So the job designs that go into recruitment and selection during HR planning, we will have to be redesigned. And how do we redesign these jobs? There are three ways in which we can do that. And in our recommendation as HR auditors, this is what we might come up with. One is job rotation, where employees are moved at certain intervals to other positions to acquire skills and knowledge, and also to familiarize themselves with how other units are working. Two, we can do job enlargement. Job enlargement is increasing the number of duties that a person is performing. Why do we increase? Is because we want to utilize them effectively. Because if they don't have enough to do, then that is not effective utilization. And then thirdly, we can do job enrichment. This means that we give these employees more responsibilities and more challenging work, especially for those who want challenging tasks. In this way, we are likely to utilize our employees effectively through job redesigning. Another one is forecasting accuracy. How accurate is our projections in forecasting. It is not possible to have 100% accuracy in our forecast because of the changes in the environment in which we operate. However, we must have some degree of accuracy when we are forecasting. So when you are forecasting, what are the aspects that you need to look at in order to ensure a degree of accuracy? One, you look at the technological change. What are the trends in the change in technology, so that as you forecast your future HR requirements, you know that we are going to need fewer employees, especially in the face of technology. Two, you can do an environmental analysis where you are looking at the political, economic, social, and the technological aspects. For example, you can look at the economic aspect and do a projection that an economy like Kenya may not be performing well now. What is the likelihood of the economy doing better next year or the year to come? So in your projection, you look at the economic trends in terms of currency, employment rates, and exchange rates, which are some of the measures of the performance of an economy. So when you focus this and come down to your organization, you will say that the economy is not doing very well. So our projection is that we are going to recruit fewer or even freeze employment. So in that way, you are able to forecast your human resource requirements using these external environmental audits. You can also do market trends. What is happening in the market today? For example, home working has become the norm today. People are working remotely. And therefore, in our forecast, we are likely to utilize more home working than physical work. For those of us who are hiring space or leasing space in town or anywhere, your projection could be that you are going to have more people working from home. And that means that in your forecast, you will be relying on the market trends. On employee turnover by department, we are looking at how many employees are leaving in different departments. As a HR auditor, you are expected to have a checklist of employees who are leaving in all the departments. And you can have a checklist running up to 1 year. For example, how many employees are leaving in the next 1 month? How many are leaving in the next 3 months? How many are leaving in the next 5 months? Or how many are leaving in the next 10 months? And this turnover could relate to retirements. So you determine how many people are retiring within that 1 year and prepare adequately for their replacement. On resignation per department, you will look at the number of people who are resigning in all these departments and find out which department is affected by high turnover. And in that department is where you forecast or you plan for more replacements, because there is a trend that has been shown that certain departments are being affected by high rates of turnover. So that is part of workforce planning, which I started with in my Take You Back. It includes this key concept: talent acquisition, employee development, performance management, compensation and benefits, diversity and inclusion, employee engagement, succession planning, and lastly, workforce planning. With that, I want to invite anybody who has a question or a comment so that we move on to the next aspect of this module. Anybody with a question or comment that we can address very quickly? Neptune, if you are there, you can ask a question or make a comment if you are ready. Evelyn, if you have any question, you can ask. Okay, apparently there is no question or comment. I request that we move on to the next. Yes. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, your comment or a question?
Yeah, I was just looking at is the aspect that you are talking about trends. Yeah.
Trends, yes.
What is going on about trends, and I tend to think maybe this is very much concerned with how HR is structured. What about other issues that are outside the measurement? Like now the Gen Z factor.
Mm-hmm.
See, whereas you are beginning to have culture which is outside the normal measure.
Yes.
And so you see people coming in and they don't even want desks.
Yes.
Or their nature of the way they work. They may not even be interested in your programs of promotion and that people have to go back to school. They may be more skill-based. They've just come and sort of roughed up the metrics, the traditional metrics. What would be your comment about that?
Thank you for your question. My comment about the Gen Zs and other people who may fall under similar categories is that we are likely to witness more flexibility in this department that we call HR. Flexibility in the methods of working, flexibility in the way we design jobs, and flexibility in the way we structure our day in terms of reporting and leaving time. If I may start with the methodology of working, young people, call them millennials and Gen Zs, they may not have time to work in an organization from morning to evening. These are people who have shorter concentration spans. So what is likely to happen is that you allow them to work from wherever they are and give them targets that they need to achieve without tying them in the organization the whole day. So home working is likely to take center stage when you are dealing with these Gen Zs. Two, we are going to redesign our jobs in a way that the content of our jobs is such that they can be achieved within a specified period of time, and that our job descriptions are going to change in terms of one, the duties, and two, responsibilities. Because the Gen Zs may not stay for a long time so that we can develop career progressions. So what we are likely to do in our job descriptions is to give them gig kind of assignments, gig, where you have given them an assignment to complete within a period of time, and after that they are free to go to other things. So depending on what your organization is doing, you can engage these Gen Zs and millennials on a gig basis. So you give them an assignment, they complete within the specified period. As long as you have satisfied your objectives, then you can tap into their skills and knowledge. The other aspect that you are going to see, especially in terms of trends, is the structure of our day. That Gen Zs are likely to either report very early in the morning and leave at midday, or come late in the afternoon to do their work. So if we can embrace more flexi working time, that these Gen Zs can come in the morning, complete their work and go. And those who are willing to come in the afternoon, they can come in the afternoon. So in that way, we are likely to accommodate these new people, the Gen Zs and the millennials, and they are able to contribute to the attainment of the objectives of our departments and our organizations. That is my take. I believe I've answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine.
Excuse me, please.
Yes, another question, Connie?
Yes, not a question per se,
Mhm.
but I'm just wondering how we would marry those two. You see, we have the traditional workers already at place who are working maybe from the normal working hours. They're in the office. And then we have the crop of Gen Zs who are coming in and they want to work for 3-4 hours. They say, I've finished my work, I'm leaving. Now, how do you marry the two? Because what will you do? What will we do? Will we have everyone on flexi work, or what will we do? Because the other eventually this will affect the other staff, and they'll also want to be leaving early. They'll also want to come with the flexi times or work with the flexi times. I just wonder what can we do so that we can marry the two without causing so much trouble in the institution.
Thank you, Connie. There are two things that somebody can do in order to address this. One is the type of contract that the Gen Zs are signing with the organization. That we can sign a new contract that they will do a gig for the specified period of time, and then they could be assigned new roles or new assignments. So we are saying that when the new people, the Gen Zs are coming, they are coming with a contract where we are allowing them to work for a specified period of time and giving them targets so that they can achieve whatever we want them to achieve. Secondly, it doesn't break a bond to reach a new agreement with the employees to embrace flexi working. If it works for you, then there's nothing lost or no bond broken, because at the end of it all, what we want is results. If flexi time can work for both Gen Zs and the remaining staff or the older staff, why not embrace it? And then the other thing is that you may need to have certain core staff on whom you can depend at all times to create that stability. Because Gen Zs will come and go, but there are these older people who work from morning to evening, and these are the core staff. These are people who have already matured and they don't need to jump from one organization to the next. So for purposes of stability, you are likely to have a contract with people, probably P&P, for the core staff who will ensure that your organization is stable. What are you likely to do with these people who are the core staff? One, develop careers for them, because the Gen Zs are very difficult to handle in terms of careers. Two, you train them to improve their performance over a period of time by identifying their training needs. Three, succession planning, so that they can occupy senior positions as a way of motivating them. And four, compensating them competitively. In this way, they are not likely to feel like they have been shortchanged because of the contract that we have signed with the Gen Zs. And in this way, we are likely to give this core staff more benefits that will help us to retain them instead of allowing everybody to work like the Gen Zs that we are likely to employ. Thank you, Connie.
Thank you. That answers me sufficiently.
Thank you. Now we move to the next part, which is how HR strategies impact organizational success. When we talk of organizational success, we are referring to the ability of an organization to achieve, one, it is vision. 2, its objectives. 3, its strategies. And 4, become competitive. And here we want to link HR strategies with this organizational success. That as HR managers, we have the strategies that we have just discussed, and then we mirror them on the vision. Are these strategies achieving the vision? 2, are they achieving the strategic plan or strategies that you have formulated for yourself? Or 3, are they helping the organization to be competitive? So we want to look at the linkage between HR strategies and organizational success. So here we are looking at the effect of these strategies and the success of an organization. I have identified some of the strategies that we have discussed and how they affect the success of the organization. To start with, there is the element of talent acquisition, which we said is attracting, maintaining, and retaining talent. So how does this help an organization to succeed? I have indicated there that it helps to succeed because it identifies and retains top talent. And by top talent, we mean people who are skilled, knowledgeable, experienced, and have a positive attitude. And in addition, they are innovative. So if talent acquisition is one of the strategies, an organization is likely to succeed because there will be high productivity from the people that we have acquired and retained. We all are aware that when we attract low-level quality of employees who are not innovative, then we are setting ourselves for failure. So as HR managers, it is our responsibility to ensure that when we acquire talent, only top talent is allowed to join the organization. And you go through the process of recruitment and selection to ensure that the people with the highest qualifications, experience, and innovation are the ones who are allowed into the system. So through talent acquisition and retention, we are able to make our employees productive, and organizations are likely to succeed because we become competitive. Secondly is employee engagement and productivity. We have said that employee engagement has to do with 2 things. One, that they identify and develop a sense of belonging to the organization. And secondly, they are involved in organizational decision making. So how does this help an organization to succeed? I've indicated 2 points there, but in the interest of time, I will talk about the highlighted one, that it drives innovation and problem solving. It has been argued that if organizations stop innovating, they start dying. So when we engage our employees, they are likely to be innovative and therefore solve our problems. I know our organizations face very many problems. And when we have innovative people who are engaged, they are likely to solve those problems. Which problems are we talking about here? It could be problems to do with systems, or it could be problems to do with processes, or problems to do with technology. The employees that we have engaged should be able to solve these problems, and that depends on how well they are engaged or utilized. The other strategy is performance management, where we are looking at this strategy against the organizational success. It is expected that in performance management, we develop clear expectations and provide feedback to our employees on a regular basis. These expectations relate to the outcomes that employees are likely to produce over the period of time. For example, the targets that we give our employees could be our expectations. Secondly is the timelines within which they have to complete their targets or achieve their targets. And three, the quality of what they produce at the end of that period. So performance management is a strategy that helps an organization to ensure that it is productive by setting those clear expectations. Again, if you look at point number 2 on performance management, I have indicated there that it promotes continuous improvement and accountability. How is it linked to performance management? That in performance management, we set targets and measure performance against those targets. And an employee is expected to achieve the targets within the specified period of time. Where there are failures that an employee has not achieved the targets, then we make recommendations through the necessary reports. So those recommendations aim at improving the performance of the employees. The other aspect I've mentioned there is accountability and driving of excellence. On accountability, everybody is accountable for what they do and their behaviors. So if there are failures in the part of the employees, such as time wastage or not meeting targets, then they will be held accountable for failing to achieve those targets. And we can only establish attainment of targets through performance appraisals. So those performance appraisals are a part of performance management, which helps us to measure the output of employees, and that will help us to hold somebody to account for what they produce. On excellence, the standards that we set for ourselves during performance appraisals will help us to achieve those levels of excellence. That we give people targets that are not simple, but challenging enough. If we give our employees challenging targets, then they are likely to achieve higher levels of excellence. So in measuring performance, we will be looking at the degree to which the employees have achieved or surpassed expectations. And that will help an organization to succeed, especially in terms of production of goods and services that brings revenue to an organization. The other strategy is culture and organizational values, which in many ways determines the behavior of people in organizations. There are various organizational values which are a part of culture, and I can mention a number of them. One is honesty and integrity, which is a value. 2 is professionalism. 3 is teamwork. And 4 is accountability. So if these are our core values, then they are likely to determine the success of the organization. For example, the value of teamwork helps people to work together and achieve synergy. By synergy, we mean the extra results or the more results that people achieve by working as a team or working collaboratively. So as HR managers, we should encourage teamwork where employees are working together to achieve results within a shorter time. And that ensures organizational productivity. On employee morale, the values that we promote will determine the level of morale that employees have. That employees are likely to be enthusiastic to perform their work if they are valued as employees. And how do we value employees? One, it is by taking their contribution into consideration when we are making decisions. Two, we allow them to participate in decision-making process. And three, we involve them in organizational activities. So if we value our employees, then we should, one, allow them to participate, two, recognize their performance, and also involve them in decision-making. So organizational culture plays a big role in helping an organization achieve its objectives, which is part of success that I've indicated. The other aspect is adaptability and innovation. I indicated that our environment is very fluid, and therefore it requires organizations to adapt to changes and also be agile. So this adaptability means that we respond to changes in the environment and adapt to these changes. What are the areas that we are likely to change in our department as HR? One, we can change policies. And what can necessitate a change in policy? It can be a change in an employment law. Two, we are going to be agile in our job design. So the jobs that we are going to develop must be responsive to changes in our environment. For example, some people who are working in a university environment design their courses in a way that it attracts people. For example, again, using the university example, universities are now using Bachelor of Commerce and IT. They are introducing information technology. And that's the same way we are likely to change our jobs so that our jobs are IT compliant. Now that we live in a space where information technology has taken center stage, we must equip our employees with the relevant skills and knowledge to handle new technologies. So we are likely to adapt to changes in some of the areas like policies, job designs, succession plans, and even promotions. I have indicated that promotions may not necessarily be vertical. Some of them can be horizontal. And there are others that are called dry promotions, where employees are promoted without necessarily giving them more compensation. The other aspect of strategy that contributes to organizational success is cost management. As I indicated, cost is one of the key factors that organizations look at with a view to reducing. So we need to optimize labor costs through efficient workforce planning and compensation. I can also expand this cost of optimization by looking at training, by also looking at the working conditions, and also looking at the work environment. If I may start with training, how are we going to optimize labor costs in terms of training to achieve organizational success? One is that our training must be targeted. We can no longer afford to train people on broad areas which are not solving specific problems. So when we decide that we are taking people for training, our training must be targeted to solve a particular problem or take advantage of an upcoming or a potential opportunity. Secondly, on training, we can individualize our trainings. Why individualize? It is because of our different needs as employees. For example, some of us are HR specialists. By specialists, I mean that there are some of us who have experience and knowledge and skills in employee relations only. Others are specialized in training. Others are specialized in compensation. So because of these specializations, our trainings are likely to be individualized. There are some of us who may not fit effectively in any other unit within HR because they are specialized in employee relations. And the matters of employee relations include trade union negotiations, because that is where they feel their strengths are. So we can cut costs in training by individualizing training and conducting targeted training instead of us conducting broad trainings, which can be a cost to the organization. I also mentioned another aspect of cost that we are likely to reduce. For example, recruitment and selection. How are we going to reduce the cost of recruitment? We are likely to use IT or information technology to reduce on cost. That one, we can automate our systems, especially on application tracking, where we develop a system that tracks these applications to the end. Two, we can use technology to shortlist employees by feeding them the criteria that we want. And three, we can shortlist, rather we can cut cost by onboarding people online. And that is a cost-effective way of managing recruitment and selection. On work environment, we can cut cost in that area. How do we cut cost? By ensuring that our working environments are healthy and safe so that we avoid the cost of compensation. That if employees are sick as a result of poor working conditions, they become expensive when we treat them. And two, they become expensive when they go to the court to sue the organization for allowing unhealthy conditions to prevail. On matters safety, we can also cut costs by ensuring that our machines, our tools, and equipment are well maintained to avoid those accidents which are costly to the organization. Again, when people are sick or have accidents and they are in hospital, they may be earning money, which is a cost to the organization, and yet they are not producing anything. And in any case, we may have to look for replacements to work while they are in hospital. So it is incumbent upon HR managers to ensure that the working conditions are conducive to reduce on these costs. I've already mentioned aspects to do with compensation, that we can reduce cost on compensation by looking at the package that we give people and probably negotiate a package that is motivating. Lastly is the legal compliance and risk mitigation. One of the risks that we run as organizations is non-compliance with the labor laws. As I mentioned earlier on, there are about 7 or 8 laws that regulate the employment relationship. 1, the Employment Act. 2, the Labor Relations Act. 3, Work Injuries and Benefits Act. And 4, Occupational Safety and Health Act. We need to comply with all these labor laws. For example, in recruitment, we must ensure that there is no discrimination, which is against the Employment Act. If somebody feels discriminated, they might go to court and sue the organization, which is a risk. A risk in the sense that we are going to spend a lot of money to fight a fire that we could have avoided. On working conditions, we must have the basic working conditions that enable employees to deliver services or produce goods. And that requires that our environment must be clean and safe. That is in compliance with the OSHA and the WIBA Acts. So basically, those are some of the areas of strategy which organizations may use to achieve organizational success. If there is a question, I can address it very quickly before we move to the next section. Anybody with a question or a comment? Catherine, any question? Connie, any question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Evelyn, any question?
No question from me. Thank you.
It's not a question, but just a comment.
Yes.
But heading to 2030, we seem to be having or breeding organizations that are very selfish.
Yes.
And looking after themselves. So, whether they are reducing costs and, making sure that employees, where is the right balance, where you are looking at retention on one end, retaining the best talent.
Yes.
And these are the things you are working on cutting costs in such a way that it's really selfishly geared towards protecting the organization rather than the employee. And so as a HR manager, who is standing between the board and the employees, where do you find yourself? Because again, it's the board that pays your salary. So you become a very selfish sort of person, and where you are not taking care of the employee per se to make sure that they are moving, they are becoming better people, or they can even move into consultancy. Because again, you are looking at cutting costs and not just selfishly for the organization. What would be your comment on that?
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. I want to answer or comment on your statement in 3 ways. One, we look at our organizational strategies as well as our HR strategies. What are we likely to implement? Is it our own selfish interest or following the HR and organizational strategies? So what is likely to guide us in our decision making in terms of cost? We are likely to look at our HR strategies. What do the strategies say in relation to all the HR functions? And in these strategies, there is always a budget. We present a budget to the management for approval. And when this budget has been approved, it's now upon us as HR managers to ensure that we have allocated the resources to the right activities. So much as we want to be selfish in terms of cutting costs, we have results to produce for which we are accountable. So if we are going to reduce our budgets because of selfish interests, it's likely to affect our productivity as HR managers. And precisely that is the reason we are conducting this course of HR audit to find out where there are gaps or bottlenecks for purposes of improvement. If we find that the budget was allocated and yet it was not spent on, for example, training, then we have failed as HR managers. Because at the end of it all, the HR department is expected to contribute to the bottom line of the organization. Secondly, what does the organizational strategy say about the growth or expansion? If we are to expand as an organization, maybe opening new branches or developing new products, it comes down to HR. That for us to open new branches, we need to hire new people, and the hiring has a cost to it. So we cannot say we are not hiring, and yet our strategy says that we are expanding. That is one approach. Secondly, we will look at professionalism as HR. Is that a professional thing to do when we are cutting costs for our own selfish interests? We may appear that we are doing well by cutting costs, but at the end of it, we are hurting our departments. So as HR professionals, we must promote aspects of integrity and honesty. So if we have selfish interests, then we are not promoting our professionalism in this area. And the other aspect, the third approach to cutting costs is that how do we ensure that we are reducing cost without hurting the organization? For example, the organization may want to exercise cost-cutting measures, which they call austerity measures. And then you are asked that you freeze training or you stop training. Yes, it might appear like you will be making the managers happy because you have reduced the cost on training. But look at the effects of not training your employees. One of the ways in which lack of training may affect an organization is wastage. Suppose an employee was to be trained on how to manage waste, and here you are frozen training. The fact is that the employee is likely to continue producing waste because you are frozen training. Or if it was accidents, an employee was meant to go for training because there were many accidents in his or her docket. So you have stopped training because there is a cost aspect that you want to address. The accidents will continue. Thirdly, there could be an element of delay. An employee did not have time management skills to ensure that there are no delays. So here you are stopping training because you want to cut costs, but the impact of delay could be very big. So it is upon us as HR managers to look at the impact of cutting cost in any aspect of our function against the benefits of the organization. So you need to balance and say you don't stop training completely. You look at the core areas where you need to address those aspects through training, and then take people for training within the budget that you have been given, but not stopping training completely. So those are the 3 areas or 3 ways in which you can address. One, as I said, you look at your HR strategy together with the corporate strategy. Secondly, you interrogate your professionalism as a HR manager. And 3, you try to balance the cost of freezing or reducing cost and the impact on the organization. I think I've answered your question, Evelyn.
That was Catherine.
Yeah, it's actually Catherine. Yeah.
Sorry?
It was Catherine.
Thank you. Now let us move to the next part, aligning business strategy and HR strategy. By alignment, we mean that whatever we do in HR is meeting or satisfying the HR strategy as well as the corporate strategy. I may have indicated before that whatever we do as HR managers is intended to satisfy the business strategy. Whether it is training, whether it is recruitment or compensation, we are there to satisfy or achieve the business strategy. And that is why the starting point of all our activities as HR managers is the corporate strategy. And there are several aspects associated with corporate strategy, which HR strategy should be aligned to. One is the element of the vision and objectives. Vision is your aspiration, your future dream, or the position you want to occupy in future. The objectives is what you want to achieve over a given period of time, which could be 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years, depending on the duration or the length of your strategic plan. So in HR strategy, we are talking of strategies like talent acquisition. So this talent acquisition must be aligned with the vision and objectives of the organization. That the people we hire must help to achieve the organization's vision. I want to take a hypothetical vision of an organization. It doesn't reflect any organization, but hypothetical. And I quote, to become a global leader in provision of quality laptops, a global leader in producing quality laptops. So that is a vision, though it's not specific, but it's talking about being a global leader. So the question you ask yourself as a HR manager, how do you help this organization to achieve this global vision? Global. Which means that your strategies like talent acquisition, training and development, compensation must be geared towards this vision. For example, we take training. that for you to be that global leader, you must train your employees so as to achieve that global vision. Considering that there are other players producing laptops in the market, then your employees must have what they call cutting edge skills and knowledge to achieve that global vision. So as HR managers, we must train people in a way that they acquire skills that are matching other global players in the production of these computers. The other aspect related to vision is innovation. That we cannot afford to ignore innovation in the management of people in our organizations. Innovation helps us to come with new products, new systems, new processes. That if we don't hire the innovative people, if we don't retain innovative people, then we fail to achieve our vision. Talking of objectives, this is what we want to achieve over a period of time. For example, an organization may have a strategy of achieving an increment of 20% of market share. 20% of market share in the next 5 years. So this is cascaded down to HR managers. How do we achieve 20% of our market share? We need to interrogate our systems, our processes, and our practices in HR, which we are auditing. So we should find out how training helps to achieve the 20% market share, assess how compensation will achieve 20% market share, or assess how our employee relations will achieve the 20% market share. So we must work on our systems to ensure that the business achieves this strategy through the HR strategy. Secondly, we look at the strategic workforce planning, where we say that in human or workforce planning, we usually forecast the future with accuracy and then prepare relevant HR plans. So for us to do this, we must prepare for change in our systems. And what change are we likely to introduce in order to achieve business strategy through workforce planning? One, we can change the way we conduct our performance appraisal, for example. Performance appraisal. If our performance appraisal has been one-sided, and by one-sided, I mean only one person assesses the other, and yet we want to achieve better results through performance appraisal. We know that when you conduct individual assessments, you are likely to be biased, especially when the rule of stick and the carrot are used. The stick is the threat of punishment. If we perform poorly, we are likely to be punished. So a person is likely to avoid punishment by rating themselves highly. By carrot, we mean reward. When there is a reward involved, employees are likely to rate themselves favorably because they want a reward. So this is biased assessment, and therefore we need to change this structure or this system by embracing a modern system, which I could suggest is 360-degree appraisal, where you are getting feedback from different sources like junior staff, peers, senior staff, and even from customers. This gives us an objective view of what the employee's performance is like. So through strategic workforce planning, we are likely to change the way we do our businesses, either through succession planning, through training and development, through career development, or through retention strategies. So when we do workforce planning, those are the things that come up when we prepare our human resource plan. The other aspect we look at in HR is performance metrics. Metrics are measurements, just like the ones I showed in strategic measurement. So we need to develop clear metrics to ensure that we measure performance in an accurate way. We can also use KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. For example, if you are in a team and there is a person who is not performing to expectations, who is always delaying you, and yet you are supposed to work as a team, how are you likely to manage this problem? You can use key performance indicators. This will make sure that the person delaying is assessed based on their performance. So there will be no delay in the system when you use key performance indicators, especially in a team environment. The other aspect we look at is change management. As I said, change is all around us. There are many things that are changing, and I'll mention maybe 3 or 4. One, the organizational structure is changing. We are moving away from the traditional tall and hierarchical structure to a more short and broad-based structure, where we have more people at lower levels performing duties than having so many people up the organizational ladder who are not doing much. So by shortening our structures, we are likely to cut costs through these structures, because tall and hierarchical structures are expensive. So that's one area where change is taking place. Another area is in technology. We are now embracing new technologies like AI. We cannot continue using the traditional methods of working. Thirdly, we are witnessing changes in organizational strategies. So strategies of organizations change depending on how long it takes to review them. Some formulate strategies for 3 years, others for 5 years. Beyond 5 years is a bad practice, because so many things will have changed in the environment. So strategic plans also change, which need to be addressed. So as HR managers, what are we likely to do in order to ensure that smooth transition? One is to equip our employees with skills and knowledge to manage the new changes, and that means training. 2, we are going to redesign our compensation and benefit structure to accommodate the new changes, especially with the young people who are more innovative and they are fairly mobile. Succession plans or promotions are not likely to attract them. It is the compensation package that is likely to attract. So we are going to restructure our compensation structure so that we move in tandem with the changes in our environment. We are also going to change our methods of working, our working methodology. We embrace aspects like shift working, flexi time, and also home working. So in this way, we are likely to manage change and transition effectively. The other aspect is leadership development. And this is part of our succession plan, that we identify junior staff and prepare them for senior positions, which are leadership. So we identify employees with the potential. So what are you going to do to identify employees with the potential? You audit by looking at the employees in different levels and cadres and identifying those people who have potential to succeed those who leave. So in this way, we are going to be successful in the way we do our business. The other aspect is cultural alignment. Culture, like any other organic element, evolves or can be changed over time. Today, some organizations have positions like people and culture managers. HR managers fit into this category of people where we are going to cultivate a culture that helps to support business strategy. And this culture, like I have indicated before, may revolve around our core values, like teamwork as a culture, like recognition of performance as a culture, like professionalism as a culture. If we embrace these core values, then we are likely to achieve excellence in our organization. Then the other aspect, which is in terms of alignment with business strategy, is cost and efficiency alignment, which I've said that as HR managers, we need to optimize costs without necessarily compromising the quality of services that we offer. Our next aspect is the competencies that HR managers must have in order to deliver superior services. And by competence, we mean essential skills and knowledge that managers must have in order for them to be efficient and effective. I've indicated several of them. One is strategic thinking. A person who has a strategic mind may always think about the following. One, innovation. Two, competitiveness. And three, growth. As a strategic thinker, you are thinking long term. And all these things are related to long-term strategies. So you think innovation. As HR managers, we must hire innovative people. And when you are talking about growth, the people we hire and promote must help an organization to grow. In terms of change management, as I have indicated, we must manage change effectively. One, by training people. Two, by allowing people to participate in decision-making processes. And three, by adapting change either in a phased way or in a progressive manner so as not to cause shocks in the system. Gradual introduction of change. For example, we want to introduce a new system like ERP, Enterprise Resource Plan. In order for us to ensure that this change takes place, one, we train the people on the ERP. Two, we pilot test it before we fully implement it. I believe you know of some organizations that have failed because of poor management of change and transition. We don't want to go that way because as HR managers, we are proactive people, and therefore we must take adequate measures in order to manage this change. Even if it means restructuring. Restructuring might have to do with one, declaring redundancies, two, renaming or rebranding certain jobs, or three, introducing new technologies. So these changes must be managed in an effective way. The other competency HR managers must have is employee relations. Employee relations has to do with creating a working relationship between managers and employees. So how do we create this relationship? One, through communication. Two, through involvement and participation. And three, through consultations and collaborations. Specifically, in employee relations, we are looking at conflict resolution and grievance handling. Conflicts may cause instability in an organization, especially in an environment where there are trade unions. I'm not saying that trade unions are bad, but usually disagreements between managers and trade unions cause these conflicts, which affect service delivery. So when we are auditing HR functions, we should create that good relations between ourselves as managers and employees or the unions. The other competency is HR metrics or analytics, that we must be able to measure the effectiveness of the various activities and functions in our organization. So these metrics can either be, one, quantitative, where we are using numbers and percentages or frequencies. Two, it can be qualitative, where we are describing certain conditions which are not right or are good for the organization. The other competence is legal compliance, that as HR managers, we must be conversant with the various labor laws, and I've already mentioned them, that as HR professional, you must have a clear understanding of how the various labor laws affect your organization and ensure compliance. The other one is leadership and influence, that HR managers are expected to provide leadership. Leadership in the way people behave, leadership in the way people work, leadership in the way people produce results. So you should lead by example as a leader, because through leadership, we influence the behavior of others. And when we are good leaders in our organizations, then we are likely to be successful. If I may quote Chinua Achebe, he says in this book called The Trouble with Nigeria, that the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There's nothing wrong with the Nigerian people, nothing wrong with the Nigerian environment. The problem is leadership. So leadership at any level, whether it is at country level or organizational level, determines the success or failure of an organization. So we must demonstrate leadership by ensuring that things are working and for the benefit of the organization. We may employ different leadership styles, but the one that works best for all organizations, I can mention two. One, transformational leadership, where we are change-oriented and enabling people to own the vision of the organization. And the other one is participative and consultative leadership, where people contribute ideas which can help an organization. Other styles of leadership could be dictatorship, which in modern day organizations, they don't work. But there are those that you call benevolent leaders who introduce systems, processes for the benefit of the organization. But I emphasize transformative leadership is the one that we are likely to adopt. Lastly, this is organizational culture. This is the last element that we are addressing on this module called HR dimensions. There are 3 HR dimensions that we mentioned. One is HR strategy, 2 is HR competencies, and now 3, organizational culture. I have already indicated that culture consists of these many aspects, which I've condensed into 4. 1, the values. These are things that we consider to be important. Beliefs. These are things that we consider to be true. Behaviors, these are the actions of people. And 4, the norms, these are the practices. In my address on organizational culture, we are going to look at the values and norms, because these are the key factors that determine the behavior of employees in organizations. So what are the elements of culture? I've mentioned them there. Core values that guide the behavior of people. And I've mentioned earlier on several core values like integrity, honesty, professionalism, and teamwork. If this is reflected in your organization, you are likely to succeed. Beliefs are shared understandings and convictions about how members perceive the work environment. So what do we believe about our work environment? One, we believe that a conducive work environment promotes employee morale and helps to retain employees. If we have a poor working condition, then it's perceived to be negative and it can easily send people away. Norms are the practices that are passed from one generation to the other. Even in our own communities, we have these norms. As a norm in HR, we conduct training needs analysis before we implement any training. As a norm in recruitment and selection, we conduct job analysis after identifying the need for new employees. As a norm in compensation, we conduct salary surveys and conduct job evaluations. Those are norms that we do in some of those areas. Symbols are logos, objects that represent the organization. If I may random, and this is Barclays Bank, which formerly used the ego. That ego is representative of what the organization stands for, its identity and culture. There are various characteristics associated with the ego. One is sight, that it's able to see far. So by extension, this meant that this organization sees far. And then when you interact with it, either by way of getting a loan or investing with them, they will take you far, just like the ego. That ego is also very accurate, that it hardly misses its target. So if you invest in this bank or you borrow from it, then you are not making a mistake. So whatever symbols that you use as an organization, they represent you. And the people can interpret those logos and those physical objects, like whatever I see at the reception, they represent who you are. They are not there for decoration. So in terms of culture, those symbols represent who you are. And then the language. The language that you use in your organization will tell us what you value as an organization. The use of jargon is not helpful anywhere unless you are talking to people who understand that jargon. So your language must be simple, clear, and timely if you are going to develop a culture that promotes effective communication. The other aspect is rituals and ceremonies. We conduct ceremonies either end of year parties or when people are leaving, we hold exit ceremonies. And this is a culture which represents the value that we attach to the employees that we are celebrating. There are other stories and myths that are told about the organization. We tell stories about our organization, where we have come from, where we are, and where we are going. So people understand an organization through those stories. And how do you tell your story as an organization? You tell that story through your policies. You tell that story through your flyers. You tell that story through the advertisements that we place in newspapers or anywhere when we are interviewing people or when we are recruiting. So people read these stories about us. For example, in a newspaper advertisement, I see many organizations saying this: we are an equal opportunity employer. That tells a story. That statement is a story about who you are and what you stand for. Equal opportunity. And that's part of your culture. On leadership style, I've talked about it. We need to embrace a leadership style that, one, promotes productivity, two, encourages teamwork, three, helps to achieve the company's mission and vision. So this style of leadership determines the culture of the organization. So a style of leadership that promotes teamwork means that teamwork is part of your culture. Working environment, we said that it speaks to the experience that people have about their working conditions. So if the working conditions are not conducive, then it represents a bad culture that you don't even value your employees because there could be many accidents and illnesses. Another aspect of culture are policies and procedures. Policies are the anchors of our culture. That if we want to promote a culture of professionalism, our policies should also address the element of professionalism. Professionalism in all the areas of operation as HR managers. So we must develop policies that promote a culture that is acceptable. How do organizational culture affect HR practices? And again, it goes to all the HR functions that we have mentioned before. And the recruitment and selection is an area which is affected by our culture related to our hiring practices. So the way we hire people reflects our culture. So if people are hired without exposing them to competitive processes, then that speaks to our culture. The same with the training, that if we value people, we must train them. And the value is part of the culture. On performance management, we emphasize teamwork and individual achievements. And I'm sure in our organizations, we have developed contracts that talk about individual achievements. So at the end of a period, we measure the performance of people individually because of the performance contract. And we have several KPIs that we measure to determine the achievement of individuals. So in performance management, we look at the aspects that talk about culture like teamwork and individual achievements. The other one is employee engagement. We say that engagement is the level of commitment to the organization and how well the employees are occupied and contribute to the organization. So in employee engagement, we need to promote a culture of communication, recognition, and higher employee engagement. On compensation, we said that culture influences compensation. How does it influence? Because of the job evaluations we conduct or the salary surveys that we do, in addition to benchmarking with the industry players to ensure that our compensation and the benefits are competitive. The other element is diversity, which I've already talked about. Our culture should promote diversity and inclusion, where all people are brought on board, whether it is training, allow employees to participate in recruitment, ensure that there is equal opportunity employment. And when it comes to promotion, everybody should also be brought on board. We are about to finish. The other aspect is conflict resolution, that in cultures that promote peace, we should ensure that there are adequate mechanisms that help us to resolve those conflicts. And that we don't wait until conflicts become so big that we can't manage them. A conflict, however small it is, should be addressed. And that stems from a culture that is proactive, that a small conflict can snowball into a big conflict which can be uncontrollable. I've talked about leadership styles. I don't want to repeat, but I will address the last two, that is employee retention and change management. An organization that values its employees must develop retention strategies. And there must be a positive culture to that effect. So how do we retain employees as part of our culture? One, provide growth opportunities. Two, train our employees. Three, allow them to participate in decision-making processes. And lastly, pay them competitively. On change management, we must facilitate change as HR professionals. And like we have realized that HR managers, the role of HR management is changing from personnel, which was very fairly operational, to more strategic. And as HR managers, we are also change agents. As a change agent, we facilitate the implementation of change. And how do we do that? We prepare employees for this change through training. We also prepare them by identifying change agents. And four, we introduce change in a manner that is not likely to shock the organization and cause problems. Lastly, I wanted us to do an exercise, but in the interest of time, I think we stop there. And that brings us to the end of our module today, where we have discussed three key aspects. Number one is HR strategies. Number two is HR competencies. And number three is organizational culture. I will now want to invite comments and questions so that we can close this session and hope to meet again tomorrow. The floor is open to anybody who has a comment or a question that they would like me to address. Kipkirui, are you there? Yes, Adija, how are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to comment that the session was really informative. Thank you so much
Yes.
for explaining all of that. Yeah.
Yes.
So yes, I don't think I have a question. Okay, actually I have one. When it
Yes.
comes to employee engagement,
Yes.
especially when they are working remotely, like if
Yes.
most of the employees in the organization or even all the employees in the organization are working remotely, so how do we ensure those policies are followed? How do we ensure those employee engagements are there? How do you even build the culture in a company when all staff members are working remotely? Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Hadija, for your question. I want to address that question in three ways. One, we have policies that inform our culture, that at all times, when employees are working wherever they are, they must follow company policy. There are policies related to communication, policies related to recruitment, policies related to performance appraisals, and others. So these policies are the guiding principles to ensure that even if employees are working remotely, they are being followed. So therefore, there must be a mechanism of monitoring that the employees working remotely are compliant with the various policies. For example, in communication, these are employees with a lot of information related to the organization. And there's a possibility that they might leak this information to other people. So it is upon us as HR managers to work with IT to ensure that whatever is contained in that system is not easily shared with the other people out there. Two, we can have regular conversations with our people to ensure that they are working and that their needs are catered for. I know, for example, that there are some of us who are working remotely and we need to be facilitated. Facilitation in terms of, one, airtime, because I cannot spend my money working remotely for an organization and yet they don't pay me for that airtime. So we should ensure that employees working remotely are facilitated in terms of airtime. Or if it's a computer and the internet that has to be provided through a modem, you provide those resources. And then number three, we have targets that employees have to achieve. That even if you are working from home, there are targets to be achieved. For example, the number of customers that whose issues you have addressed. So if you are to address certain issues, there are targets or KPIs that have to be met. So if people have targets to be achieved, those are the ones that we should be concerned about. And then lastly, we look at the well-being of the employees, even when they are working remotely. Well-being includes aspects of emotional, psychological, and mental health. We know people working away from the office maybe feel lonely, which is a psychological issue, or maybe depressed. So how are we going to ensure that they are engaged and identify with the organization? We provide support services like counseling. We provide buddy systems where you partner employees so that they are aware of where the other one is or what they are doing. And also, if there is a possibility of compensating them well, especially for those who meet or surpass their targets, you can do that. So there are four things that you are going to do. One, ensure that their targets are met. Two, ensure that the policies are adhered to. Three, provide support services, especially for psychological and mental issues. And four, facilitate the employees. I think that is how you can go about it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. You've answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if there is no other question, I want us to stop there for today. Tomorrow, I believe we shall start on that time and that there will be no hiccups. So thank you for your participation. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Have a good night.
Have a good night too. Thank you.
Thank you
Good
very
night.
much. Good
Thank
night.
you so much. Good night.
Thank you.